Yo, it's the almighty EA Ski with Fresca the Fly Panay on the throwback station Q102.
All right, so throwback station, the new Q102, and I'm really excited because we have a producer that I am actually I'm a big fan of, and my boy EA Ski.
Man, what's up, Fresh?
How are you?
What's going on? What's going on?
Man, what's going on with you? Because like I said earlier, I was apologizing because you were supposed to be here last week. And I was like, this guy's going to wring my neck when he comes into the studio when I see him.
Nah, I understand how things go. It just kind of caught me off guard because I was in the midst of working on the mix for Dre, you know what I'm saying, and getting his new album stuff together because, I told him, I made a promise to him I was going to be a part of it and at least try to get some stuff together for the new album he's dropping around the time of the Straight Outta Compton movie drops around August 14th. Yeah, so, we just working,
Yeah,
so,
man.
I want to be a part of it.
So yeah, let's talk about what you're doing right now. I mean, you're working with Dre. Are you working with Cube too?
Yeah. Well, Cube, that's my close friend, man. We did like a gang of records so far for his album, but he's doing so many movies. I mean, he's on a tear right now. So he's right now he's actually in the midst of working on Barbershop 3. So he's out there, I think, in that windy city of Chicago, out there getting it in. But in the midst of that, I'm always in the studio working and making sure that tracks that's gonna be fire, and all you got to do is worry about after you finish, just come and get the writing.
Yeah, man. Well, let's talk about. Okay, so let's go back in time. So let's talk about when you were working with Spice One.
Yeah.
And Trigger Got Snow Heart. Like that was, what year was that? Like 90.
That was like 91, 92. Yeah, and around 91, 92.
Was that the first track you did that went platinum, I think? Was that?
Yeah,
so,
definitely.
So
yeah.
Describe that feeling, though. I mean, because you had already been making beats for a long time, an artist, in your own right.
Right.
And so when that happened, what was that? How did it feel like?
It was interesting, because at that time, we were all trying to, everybody, from Oakland area was trying to shop deals and get deals. And so happened I had a demo that I put together, and it got heard by this independent label called Triad Records, which that was actually the label he was on before he got upgraded to Jive Records. And they liked my demo so much, they were like, hey, we like what you're doing, we want to sign you, but can you give him some of your tracks? And I was like, give him some of my tracks, like, because I was an artist too, so I'm like, I'm not giving him my tracks.
Yeah.
Like, well, we'll pay you. I said, well, how many of y'all want? So it turned from me being an artist, and then actually it kind of pushed my production over there to them, and just so happened Spice was really hot in the streets, and he blew up with his EP, and Jive picked him up, and then we wind up doing some songs together, and it just, the chemistry, it just went platinum, you know what I'm saying? And it was just like, it made history, and it opened the door for people to hear like a lot of original music, because at that time, everybody was sampling. They was either sampling Parliament or they was sampling a lot of different, records, and I was really making original pieces.
Music,
yeah. So it was a good chemistry, you know what I mean?
But I wanted to ask you too, because you touched upon it a little bit, because you're an artist too.
Yeah.
So when you're making beats and you hear something, you're like, man, this is hot. This is, how do you separate yourself from the producer, producing for somebody else, or how do you give that beat up? Like we were just talking about, how do you do that?
It was hard in the beginning because all them tracks Spice had was my records, so, but, I think I'm real spiritual, so I believe that things happen for a reason, and I've always been a person of giving, so I always felt like if somebody's in a position to do something and you're really not there, let them politic that, and hopefully they'll give back and come back and swoop and say, hey, now your time to piggyback off each other. So I'm a firm believer of just a piggybacking, but I didn't know Spice like that, so it took me meeting him and getting a vibe, and once we vibed, we just had a good connection, and it made me want to give him more because of the energy and the energy that we had as far as creatively. He was just in there, and he was working on a lot of great material. He was real clever, he was creative, and that sparks me. I'm a creative person, so when I get in there, I'll give you everything if you're creative.
Do you still talk?
Yeah, I talked to Spice not too long ago. He's been like traveling and touring and doing stuff like in Germany, and been overseas doing little shows, but we still talk.
Do you think that, and I'm hoping I'm not going off on like different tangents and stuff, but talking to you like here, I want to ask you so many things.
Yeah.
How do you feel about the way music is accepted here in the Bay? Because I hear so much about like, oh yeah, we've only sold X amount of copies here, but then like overseas, it's like some crazy phenomenon. And back home, you know, the artists don't really get as much love. Like, how do you explain that?
Well, I explain it is based upon the fact that, you know, hip hop is pretty much 40 plus years old now. You know what I mean? So we've heard a lot of stuff, and I think we've gotten to the point, like anything, like you're not as appreciative of it at home. Other people, they don't get it like that. So they're really getting up on it, and they love the culture. You know, if you go to UK, you go to Germany, I mean, they know the music actually better than we do now because they study it. They study the history of it, and it's love for them. And we kind of taking advantage of it because we do it, and it's everywhere. It's so oversaturated.
It's part of our everyday kind of thing.
And now with technology, you have people coming out the woodworks making music, and some of it is just not good, so it's just making people like, you know.
Well, you're keeping it real, like you said.
I'm just keeping it 100. You know, people don't appreciate it because there's a lot of music that's just not worthy of appreciating either. So now even good music gets filtered into that pot.
What do you think artists need to do here at home? Like, I heard you in an interview talking about how, you know, it's great to be local and you could sell like 30,000 units, but you're not really. Like, what do artists need to do to get to that next level to get out of the Bay? What do you think they need to do?
I just think that, you know, you have to get out of the Bay first to see how people are doing different things in different cultures. You know, I mean, sometimes, you know, we get caught up in just being in the hood. You know, me being from East Oakland, you know, because I've had a chance to travel because I was in martial arts since I was a kid. Yeah. So I traveled, you know, undefeated in the world, you know, 3-time world champion. So I've traveled everywhere and I've got a chance to see just different culture. And that allowed me to be able to incorporate it in my music and not just make my music just so regional, you know? And I think that that's a big thing, that you have to get out and see different things, not just be in your own backyard. And when you do that, it makes your music push in so many different areas, and it makes you more, you know, like you're just not, you know, you get off the plane, people want to, you know, I can go to New York or Chicago, I can go to Atlanta, you know, I get a lot of love. So, you know, I just think that you just have to be willing to not be peer pressure to just be in your own region. You know, love your region, do what you do, but you got to brand yourself away.
You talked a lot about risks, though. Like artists need to take those risks sometimes.
You have to.
And you mentioned about, you know, there may be like a sound that's real hot.
Yeah.
And then you have that artist or that producer that's just making another track kind of like that sounds hot.
Yeah.
But they're not really growing or like evolving with the music. How do you get out of that? Because I think some people get stuck.
Yeah.
You know? How do you stretch your creativity?
You know, that's a really, really tough question. It's hard because it depends on the person that you are. You know, like if you were grown up to be kind of a leader, then it's not that hard to make that choice. You know, when you've always kind of been somewhat peer pressured or, you know, just kind of fit in because you felt awkward, you know, you kind of tend to keep those traditions going as you're older. And that reflects you in your life, not just in music, but just in life. You could just tell that that's just who you are. So you have to make a conscious effort to kind of look at yourself in the mirror and ask yourself, you know, where do you want to go? Because it's easy to fit in, you know, like myself. You know, I talk to the kids and I mentor a lot of kids, and I tell them, you know, I've never smoked and drank, but that's what most they look at rappers do, you know. So, and I said, well, no, because I was able to lead and show you that you could be a great artist without having to indulge or whatever. And not saying there's nothing wrong for those who do what they do, but it takes a strong person to be able to, like, this is what I stand for. I can still be cool with y'all, but this is the rule and the lane that I'm setting. And that's what I've tried to do with my music my whole career, is set the lane. You know, I've never wanted to piggyback. When I heard something that was great, I was like, man, that's great, but I can't do that. But I can take that energy and create my own sound for that. So it just takes you digging in yourself, really. You know, that's a spiritual thing you got to ask yourself, really.
You know, I was really impressed when I heard you talk about, on another interview, somebody gave you a Roland 606.
Yeah.
And it was broken.
Yeah.
And they said to you, hey, if you can fix it, you could have it.
Yeah.
And you were like, I'm taking an electronics class and I'm fixing this thing, and you got it working.
Yeah, man.
That had you not done that,
could change everything.
Yeah.
That could have changed everything, because at that time I was really hungry for hip hop. I was in high school, And just so happened, I always would rap over my buddy's house. He's like, man, you good? You're like, man, he brought it out. He said, man, I've had this, but it's broke. And I'm like, what's that? I didn't even know what it was. It was just, I guess because he was doing like little drum stuff.
Yeah.
And he's like, it's a drum machine, And I was like, work? And he's like, no, but if you fix it, it's yours. And just so happened, I had electronic class, and I took it straight.
What high school?
Fremont High.
Okay.
Yeah, Oakland, Cal. Yeah. So I took it. I worked with my teacher, Mr. Estes. You know what I'm saying? And I'll never forget that when I got it up and running, I went and I thanked him to this day. I saw him at Best Buy, and I said, I gave him a hug. We took a picture. I put it up on my Facebook just to let him know I never forget my foundation and where I come from. So that's so important. That story is actually more important than everything I've done, because that's created me to show people the work that I put in to do what I want to do, and and pursue something with not having anything and just taking something and making it something.
So what? So was that your first piece of equipment?
That was my first.
You didn't have turntables or anything.
So
how did what was the next? What rolled in after that in the home studio
after that? You start getting like turntables and mixers, because you mixing and doing little stuff, and then I started acquiring like little other drum machines, Casio keyboards. You hear about the Casio little keyboards, and then I was probably one of the first ones to have like multi-track. Like a multi-track recording where you record one track, two track, before a lot of people even thought about having it, because everybody was going to big recording studios and paying,
I had a little Tascam 424.
There you go.
Little cassette one,
there you go. The cassette ones, yep. So, so I had those things, and I just kept, like, a lot of people don't know, I took a lot of my prize money from fighting and I put it back into my music. So when I won big purses from competing and fighting, I would take that money and I would put it towards,
invest it back into you,
invest it into stuff. I just never made excuses. I knew that it took money to do stuff, so I always tried. I believed in it. I loved it so much. I just believed that I'm gonna get piece by piece, no matter how long it take. I'm gonna get it, and I did it. And a lot of those gear from back then, I still have.
Wow.
So I have a shelf of I call it the archives, and I have a shelf of all the stuff that I've had.
You ever pull any of those out and use it today?
Oh yeah, I put them in, like I was sampling them, and I'll put them in a folder, you know what I'm saying, and just remind me of some of the sounds that we was using. And a lot of those sounds are coming back now. So a lot of people don't know it's a full circle on how music goes. So.
Well, let's digress a little bit, because you talked about martial arts. I'm a martial arts geek, man. I geek out on that stuff.
I saw that kick. I was like, wow. I'm like, okay.
But and I had seen something online of it was you like working out with somebody with a chest protector, and like you were getting, and he had mitts and everything. What style what's your background, martial arts background? What do you do? What do you practice?
It was called One Hop Kendo, and it was a part of like Kaji Kempo.
Okay.
It was a
hard style.
Yeah, it was a combination of real street fighting, real realistically, ground fighting, because a lot of people don't realize most fights, you're not about to, you see the movies, you kicking and punching, going back and you're not going to stand
like that.
up.
Yeah.
That's
in
not
real life.
realistic. So, it taught you how to ground fight, how to, just really take out the opponent, really, really take out the opponent.
When did you start? How old were you?
I was 7. I was 7 years old. I started when I was 7. I loved it that much. I used to watch, because back then it was just the martial art era, all the martial art movies, every movie.
Yeah.
You can go to the Lux Theater and see a billion martial art movies, and I'd be in a movie theater from 10 o'clock to 10 at night, just watching the same movie over and over.
Really?
Like, oh yeah, I'm a geek. I'm a geek.
I like it.
One thing about me, that's how I got my name, EA Ski. Excellent ability to stay on top. I'm a perfectionist.
Nice.
I really, whatever I put my mind into, I'm really going hard, and I'm trying to be creative with it and really push the boundaries. So that's what I did.
But you competed.
Oh yeah, I competed. I was going to the World Games, and I was on Channel 2 News, segment 2 News for the Seoul Korea 88 Games. I fought Billy Blanks, beat Billy Blanks.
Oh, really?
Yeah, beat him in the World Games in Minnesota.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I
So what do you think about his Taibo stuff?
I love it. I love it. I think it's great because it's showing people how to stay in condition, and he's teaching you the right way on how to throw the punch and how to throw the kick without you dislocating stuff. Like I see a lot of classes and people are just throwing stuff. They're not certified really to teach you how to throw a punch, throw a kick, where people are hurting themselves, so it's something you really need to know, and he's definitely qualified to do it. He got the background, and he's great at what he do.
So do you still train to this day?
Definitely. I still train.
Yeah. Do you have like a place you train in?
I have several Oakland? Facilities that I train. You know what I'm saying? But I do a lot of just training, conditioning training, and core training, just to keep sharp, and it's just for the conditioning and for the mental part of it. Like a lot of people look at it like, oh, you could just go and beat up. Like it's not really about that. It's about really the spiritual and just pushing yourself to stay conditioned and just really just stay focused. The eye coordination and moving and being able to see things.
I see it.
Yeah, man, I look forward to that.
But there's so much depth to you, and it's very intriguing to me because we only see, we see or hear E.A. Ski, the producer, E.A. Ski, the artist, but there's so much more to you. You're a martial artist, you're a dad.
Yeah.
What do you think about music today? And because you have a daughter.
Yeah.
And how you hear the way artists speak about women.
Yeah.
Degrading women and things like that.
Yeah.
And how has that? Has that affected you at all with your music? I mean, especially having a daughter of your own, mm-hmm. and sometimes people think that maybe or people might feel that man, this artist is talking about my daughter like that. How do you feel about that?
The way I feel about music in general, I'm just a realist person, and I tell my daughter the same thing. You can't. I try to give you.
How old is she?
She's 20.
Okay.
Yeah, but I try to give you who I am. But you might not get that from everybody else. That's why I'm a firm believer. When you're a parent, you put out what you want your kids to get and mm-hmm. understand. So when they get that energy, that's not the right energy that we might hear in records, whatever, that that's something else. That don't have nothing to do with you. And you try to be a product of the environment that, your parents create for you. Mm-hmm. Now, either your parents can create a good environment or they can create a bad environment. It just all depends on the parent. As far as music-wise, some people have experienced situations with bad women, where they feel like they, because it's two sides to that. Rap is therapeutic. So I really feel that people should talk about their experience, whether it's a good experience or a bad experience. It allows them to talk about it. But at the same time, people that hear it have to understand the conditions that might not be necessarily for everybody. It might be a certain situation that they had to vent upon. I think sometimes music can get misinterpreted based upon, what if that person don't know you, they're gonna assume that's just he hates women and he kills people and guns and it's like you just have to really study and learn people, just like you can't believe everything you see or everything you hear.
That's true. So. You mentioned something also about people not forgetting where they come from.
Yeah.
You had a video. Did you say you had a video that addressed that, or talked about people need to come I can't remember what it was you said. People just need to remember where they came from. You weren't going to mention any names.
What was it?
I can't remember.
Was it called They Know?
Maybe it was that one. But when you see artists kind of stray away, mm-hmm. do you sometimes ever approach them and be like, hey,
I do.
Stay humble.
I will pull your coattail real quick. Mm-hmm. I'm just that type of artist. I'm totally different.
Has that ever been received in a bad way?
Always. It's always received because people have their own insecurities and demons, but I can't make their insecurities my insecurities. My mm-hmm. job is to give you information, real information. However you want to take it, you take it. But you can't say that it's not real. Like you'd be mad at me, but after you sit back and you digest, you can be like, hey, it's really real.
Right.
I'm just real about it, and I want people to do the same thing with me. If there's an issue you have with me, call me out on it so we can talk about it, figure it out, and hopefully I might have to reflect like, hey, I didn't see it that way, But I just think we don't have no responsibilities no more. Nobody has responsibilities. I just think everybody want to justify doing whatever they want to do, and this is the reason why the world is corrupt.
Like accountability?
Just no accountability. We just want to just hide behind the email. We want to hide behind a text. We just want to be not seen, but we don't want no we don't want no real conversation. And I wasn't born like that. I wasn't raised like that. I was raised to look you in your eye, tell you what I have to say. We can walk away and not like each other. That's fine. but I didn't hide and text you, hey man, I really don't like no, we're gonna talk about this, you know.
Well, let's talk about how that how this generation has moved from from like back in the days with us. We didn't have internet, we didn't have the social media, and and now this generation's, I guess they call it like, I don't know, the microwave generation or something like that. It's just instantaneous. They want it now.
Right.
But it has been helpful, and it's changed the industry.
Yeah.
And how you market yourself and all of that. Do you still feel that like grassroots stuff, pounding the pavement with your feet, going out there and promoting yourself is still effective, or do you think that the social media is really the way to do it?
I'm a firm believer that everything plays a role in everything, but I think one thing you can never get away from is really, like they used to say, kissing the baby, shaking the hand and kissing the babies. Like you can't. That's priceless. When a person meets you face to face and they can look in your eye, they can see so much emotion in your soul. And that's what makes people that's why the music sold and did what it did back in the day, because people was resonating. We had to do in-stores. We was doing autograph signing. We was touching the people. When you can't do that. Social media, you don't even know if that person's for real.
Mm-hmm.
You don't, but not to disregard the social media. I think if you're smart enough to understand how to put them both together, you can do something real powerful. But most people don't. They're lazy now. Because a lot of the generation, they don't know how to to talk. They don't even know how to talk in community. They can't even have a conversation with you. It's got to be LOL. Oh my, like they don't have social skills. So that's the pros and cons. So it's good if you have the information how to use it and put them both together. But it's bad if that's all you know, because now you're just missing so many other elements of how you can connect with your fans.
So do you think artists nowadays need to have a bit more, like their A&Rs need to really help them in that? Do they?
No, not that I know.
Okay, I'm too old school then.
Man, if they have A&Rs, please tell me, because I'm going to talk to the A&Rs, because they're not doing a good job at all. Now, everybody's out there being their own person, and I think that's the problem. There's no supervision, there's no mentors, there's no proteges. Everybody has their own hidden agenda or ulterior motives, and they're not guiding the generation to understand the power of music and what it does and why it was so great and why it's so just more. It's popular now, but it's not as effective. You know what I mean? Because the conversations are not, it's just no substance in the conversation. Everything is just kind of stuff we heard, like, it doesn't touch anybody, and then you hear certain records, or you'll hear a Kendrick, or you hear a J. Cole, and you be like, whoa. And you see how it is, like, and I'm not saying that all of that music is on that level and there's not room for other music. I'm just saying that when it's so much of one set of music, and then you don't have the balance, it just makes it where, kids and the new generation is just kind of recycling, and they don't have no mentors to tell them, hey, balance out, talk about some real issues that affect you, you know what I mean? Because they keeping them tucked in, trying to make everybody think it's all good, but it ain't all good,
What about, you listen to, you talked about J. Cole and some of the artists out now. We're a throwback station.
Yeah.
Give me 3 of your, favorite throwbacks ever of all time. Could be hip hop, could be R&B, could be funk, jazz, anything.
Oh man, that's tough. I got a lot, because that's one. Is Houdini. I just redid a Houdini joint called Friends.
Oh.
And I just found it funny that record came out in '84, but the message and the lyrics is so relevant now, because a lot of people don't have real friends. A lot of people have superficial friends, or friends that need you just for that moment.
Right. Facebook friends.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. So I was definitely feeling the Houdini. Of course, I'm a big Ice Cube fan. From day one, because he touched on so much. Not only just street lyrics, but he was always revolutionizing just inner politics stuff that really is conditioning a lot of the urban, environment, you know what I mean? So, I'm definitely a fan of that. I was definitely listening to Public Enemy, because, a lot of those artists I'm talking about, they really revolutionized music in a way where if you even go back and listen to it, you're like, whoa, it was ahead of its time.
Yeah.
It was ahead of its time.
How about you as an artist? We talked about how you're an artist and a producer.
Yeah.
What is your different approach in the studio? Like, is there an EA Ski, the producer, that does things one way, and then there's EA Ski, the artist, and now you're in the vocal booth. Do you find yourself like engineering yourself in the vocal booth? Like,
making an EA Ski record is so difficult because I'm so driven. I understand that production is the key. People will tune you out if the production is not immaculate and it doesn't touch them where they can move. They tend to just block your lyrics out, unless you're on the East Coast, because they on the train, so they on the headphones, so they listen to more lyrics and bars. But over, in this area, the West Coast, it's music driven. So I find myself making sure that the music has to be great, and then I have to figure out, because of the way I rap and because of what I stand for integrity-wise, I have to be able to make rhymes that's really me, but make it fit where the fans won't feel like it's too preachy or going over their head. It's just finding that balance, And, I've had to do that with even some of my radio songs that I've had in the past, Like I've always had bars that said something that was really like, whoa, But you had to really pay attention, you know what I mean? So, yeah, but I have, I'm always battling with making sure that I'm engineering myself at the highest, So.
I was thinking, I wonder how different that is, because you're on both sides of the glass,
and it's two different hats, like what you do on a production level and what you do on an artist level is two different things, because, when you're writing, you have to write and you have to find patterns. I write to the music. I don't just write and then try to find music to put it to. I'm really about the emotion. So if the strings or the bass is doing that, I'm making sure the bars is moving right with that in pocket to make the fans feel that energy. That's so important, and that's what I do with any artist that I produce. I was like, look, don't, no pre-written. You're gonna write to this track.
Oh wow! So like when you're working with say, super, I love his lyrics. Oh my God, Locksmith.
Yeah.
I mean, he's mad lyricist,
definitely.
And that's how you guys work in the studio.
That's how we work. We work, we get the track, we sit down. We figure out how to make sure that these lyrics and this track become one, because they got to become one. Sometimes just pre-written stuff, you're forcing it to a beat, and that's not how beats work. Not to me. My biggest successful stuff has come from sitting down and digging into it and writing how that track is making. When that string part come in, and you get more intense,
Oh wow.
Yeah, you really got it. It's technical for me. Like it's not just make a beat and start rapping. A person that work with me in the studio, they gonna be upset. They gonna be upset.
But you pushing them though. You pushing that envelope for them.
I'm
helping them grow.
Like an instructor. I'm like, nah, do that. We're gonna do that punch again. Punch again. Punch again. Wax on. Wax it on off.
There it is. But okay, I had to print this out because I couldn't. There's no way I can remember all of these artists. So all right, Spice One, TRU. True, Spice, Cam, Loonies, Master P, Ice-T, Mr. Mike, Ice Cube, J.O. Felony, Be Legit, Yuck Mouth, San Quinn, Them Hood Stars, Messy Marv, Frontline, Too Short, Turf Talk. Do you ever look back and be like, man, you're not done, but the fact that it's like, wow, I've worked with all of these great artists.
Right.
You ever just sit back at the house, just chilling, whatever, and almost just be taken back with everything that you've done and all the artists you've worked with so far?
It's a trip the way my mind works. Yes and no. Sometimes I look back and say, man, we did a lot, but I'm always a proactive thinker, so I'm always thinking of how I can top what's been done. And when I see, things change, I'm always thinking, how can you, make it relevant right now? Till I'm just in the point where I'm not doing it, then I can really reflect on it. But because I'm still doing it,
right in the middle of it.
It was always told to me, you're only as good as your, the thing you're doing now. So, I try not to think about really stuff that I've done. But what I will do, I will use that as a gauge for the future. So I'm like, you know what, this is how it was done. This is why this made the impact. So maybe I take a little bit of that was done at that time that made that so great and try to add it to what I'm doing now. You know, so I will take that foundation and try to take it forward. But I don't really harp off the past, you know what I mean? Because it's hard to do that and continue to be successful, because that's why a lot of producers are not here now. That's still probably good, but they live in the past so much they're not, you know, you get stuck in the past. You really get stuck in the past. Your music, you're like, damn, you sound like you in 1970, bro. You know, like you using that sound, you know what I mean? Wow. Yeah, it happens like that. So you have to really you have to ride that thin line between saying, yeah, I know, I remember this, but I gotta push forward, you know, or you get stuck.
So for you to enjoy music, I was talking to Rick Rock about it last week because they were here last week. And like, in order to enjoy music, like you have to like, at least for me, I have to pick everything apart and hear every little piece in order to be like, because I used to play music too. So I have my daughters like, well, listen, and I'll ask them, okay, what do you hear that's doing this? And she'll be like, I think that's a that's a cymbal, Mom, you know, or something like that. You know, it's a ride cymbal or whatever. And they'll be like, okay, what's this? Okay, I think that's part of the drums. I'm like, yeah, but what drum is it though? Is it a bass drum? Is it a snare drum? Is it a floor tom? What is it?
Being real meticulous.
Yeah, and then, okay, yeah. And so I started that with them when they were little. And then we went to the symphony for the first time. They were like, oh. I mean, I had a chart and I was like, what's this? It's a harp. What's this?
Dope.
Oh, it's a timpani. What's this? You know?
Dope.
And so when they were able to, they finally kind of understood, okay, so we put all those things together and you make music
that's
like
dope.
that. When you listen
that's
to
dope.
music, do you find yourself, I would think you'd be like picking things apart and listening.
That's my Achilles heel. I pick too much apart, you know, to the point where people like, just an artist right here, Red the Arsonist, and I've been working with him on a lot of stuff. And he's like, Ski, when you gonna drop your record, man? This is crazy. I'm just like, I gotta change this because, this sound is going, like, sometimes.
That tiny little thing makes it, or you EQ it different, or you're pitching it up a little higher, or you don't, makes the biggest difference.
With record labels because they, with record labels, well, back then, they would want you to send like before you get your other half of your money, you would have to send them a demo part of what you've already done before they send you the other part of your budget. Oh, it was crazy. So
copyright.
They was like, they were like, oh man, this sounds great. I'm like, no. That's just, I sent that just so you can hear, get an idea. That's not EQ'd up. Oh, it sounds great like that. See, other people's ear don't hear what I've been doing for so long. And so it's hard to tell a person that this kick drum is distorted. Oh. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
when it just sounds the same to them. So, when your ears are not trained. It's the same thing when you talk about martial art. Everybody think they kicking and punching until they get hit with a real kick and punch.
Yeah, like a chamber wasn't in the right place.
You know what I mean? Yeah.
Chamber not tight enough.
Yeah. So, yeah.
So you brought your artist here.
Yeah.
Let's talk about him. I spoke with D.L. the Arson out from Vallejo, and he was like, yes, he got this new artist, and he's arsonist. So he's like, ask him about it. And
right.
And so let's. How did y'all meet up?
Man, it's an interesting story. I have a buddy that actually shout out to R54. You know what I'm saying? We have been working on a couple of photo shoots and videos, and they mutual. So he was asking about me, not even really knowing what I do. You know what I'm saying? Because he's into his real craft, just doing his thing. And so when we got up, and I was like, another artist is rapping. Because I get.
Yeah, I'm sure you get that a lot. Yeah.
And as soon as he pushed play on me, I was like, whoa. I mean, the bars, it reminded me of a Locksmith. Just basically the bars and just really the intricate of really being able to put words together and really make songs, and that's what I'm into. I'm not into just a rapper that's able to rap because, that's great for entertainment. But for me, I want to have an artist that really can make songs. And the songs he made, we went down and we talked to Dre, and Dre was blown away. Dre was like, man, so it just let me know that I really do have a great ear for artists that really, not just a rapper, but just really understands the etiquettes of really making records and able to do multiple things. And that's what he's been doing. He's been showing and proving every day, writing hard and doing some things. We just wrote some reference lyrics for Dre, so.
Nice.
Yeah.
Wow. So,
yeah.
All right. Well, I mean, I've monopolized your time for like the last hour, but everybody here.
It's good.
So what is So what's on the horizon for you as an artist and you as a producer and your artist? Like, let's talk a little about that and,
Well, for me, I've been for a while been talking about dropping a record, but
I know we're waiting.
I know,
just so you know.
I do get tied up with. I'm a giving person, so I'm always, when I have an artist that I can help, I'm just willing. It's easier for me to see their vision from the outside. Yeah, I'm able to just really know what to do. When it's me, it's just a little different. But with that being said, I'm dropping an EP around September. I'm thinking tentatively the title is going to be called Artist Producer, so it fits.
Okay.
It fits. I got features with me, Tech Nine, Too Short, me and Ice Cube. Just the usual suspects. Be Real, Styles P from New York. I got an artist named Tito Lopez that was signed to Capitol. That's super dope. Of course, Red the Arsonist. We just shot a video. So I got a great album that's productionally and lyrically really crazy. But I let the fans judge that because I don't really judge my own music. Away from that, I'm working on his album stuff together. And of course, like I said again, working on the Dre, working on the Cube project right now, working on MC Ren. Me and MC Ren did some stuff like crazy. I mean, he's killing as far as his sales right now with the single we've done. And I got so many like new artists that's hit me out. Talk to Kendrick a little bit about some stuff. So there's a lot of stuff that I'm putting together. But I just kind of just want to get it together. You know what I mean? But the EP stuff, that's together. That's pretty much together.
Oh wow.
Yeah, the EP is. But I've been working on that for a while. So I've had a lot of time to be able to just scope out just the chemistry of the production selection. It's just got to be immaculate to me,
So what, real quick, what life-changing or life events have happened to you since the last album you dropped that has kind of shaped maybe some of the new material for your EP?
I've never ever really actually dropped albums. I've always dropped like singles, big singles that's always been kind of big, So, those singles allowed me to be able to show the world that you could be creative, you know what I mean? Like, when I dropped Ride or when I dropped, Help Quinn with the Hell Yeah record, those things, because I was on it, people thought it was my record, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But you know what I mean? But at the same time, it just opened the doors to just show these artists that, music should sound a certain way, people know me from a certain sound. So I think that's what's happened is that when I drop stuff, people see the bigness of the records and they're like, oh my God, you know what I mean? I want my stuff to sound like that. So that's what's changed, it's just I do so many projects, independent projects, people hitting me, you know what I mean? But I'm about my business. I don't make it easy for them. I'm like, look, you better have a budget, so I get them to understand it takes a lot to make the records. I don't just pull up a laptop and start pulling sounds up and hear your beat, it's a lot of intricate stuff that go into it. But so that's the stuff that's changed on that end, and just making sure that like I said again, I'm focused with a lot of the branding. I got endorsed by Kai, saying the MPC. So
nice.
I have that, going on with that.
What are they at? MPC what? 4,000?
No, the MP,
10,000 now?
It's called the Renaissance. You know what I'm saying?
Wow.
So it's the Kai Renaissance. I got a lot of companies that I'm endorsed by, Neve. I don't know if you're familiar with Neve, but they one of the big powerhouse companies that, far as sound and the Neve boards. If you ask somebody, they'll tell you it's crazy.
Wow, so
It's
that's the new stuff you got in the house. So not just the Roland 606 from back in the day.
Oh yeah, but I still love that though, because I use that and I run it through some of the stuff that I'm doing. So it's crazy.
All right, cool. And last thing you want to tell the Bay?
Man, I just want to tell the Bay, all you artists that's out there, hopefully you listening and just be inspired by, what I'm doing as far as musically, the boundaries I'm pushing, what I've done for this area, and what I'm still doing to push this music. And that all comes from just staying humble and, thinking out the box and investing in yourself. Don't expect everybody to hand stuff out. If you got money to go to clubs and do this and do that, invest in your music, invest in your craft, take it seriously. And I truly believe that people will feel your music on that level if you believe in yourself.
Right on.
That's what's up.
Well, thank you very much for coming, Mr.
Salute
E.A.
you.
Ski,
Salute you, Fresh.
and for
Thank
bringing Red Arsonist with you.
Yes.
And thank you to Mr. Estes for helping you.
Oh, yeah, Mr. Estes, man. Yeah, man. I hope he's
fixing
still
that
alive.
broken
You know, to
606.
be honest with you, he was older back then. I haven't seen him since then, but I hope he is.
Well, we're always thankful for him as well for helping you
yeah,
fix
but
that broken 606.
Yeah, he did that. He did that.